Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Johnny Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to my friend Steve from the Frugal Expat. Steve is a personal finance blogger I met through Twitter. It is only at the age of 30 that he started to get more interested in saving and investing. He certainly read a lot of blogs on the topic and as well on traveling. And little by little, this led him to write about it, to help others with their money questions as well. As the name of his blog implies, we will talk about frugality, what that means, the difference between frugality and being cheap, the benefits of frugality, and how you can embrace a frugal lifestyle. This is a lifestyle I have adopted myself for a long time now, but it was not always the case, and I think more of us should embrace that lifestyle too. So I'm very excited to share that conversation. This episode is for you if you're curious about frugality, or perhaps you already started to embrace this lifestyle, but most importantly, this episode is for you if you want to live a life more true to yourself and not the life others want from you. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Steve. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jonathan. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm doing fine, and I'm excited to speak to you because today we're going to speak about a topic which we have mentioned before, but not as a whole topic, as a whole episode itself, that is frugality. So, Steve, maybe we can start with the definition of frugality. I mean, how you see it actually. So what is frugality actually? Because sometimes it's often confused with cheapness, being cheap.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. To me, frugality, the definition would be it's good value, plus it's got a purchase price that's less than the market price. So it's all about value, but getting a good deal out of it, if that makes sense.
Yes. I think getting a good deal, and that's what a lot of people and listeners are interested in. But what is the difference with frugality and being cheap? Is there a difference at all, or is it the same?
It's quite different. As cheapness, it's more like you're living fast and quick. You buy something and you hope it lasts for a little bit, and it's all for like a cheap price. Frugality is more about adding value. So when I go and buy, let's say, a computer, I don't go buy the cheapest computer possible for it to last me for 1 or 2 years. I go and buy a computer that I think is going to last me maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years, but I look for a good deal or a great price on it. Right now, I work with a MacBook. My MacBook is from 7 years ago. I got it on a discount, and it still works today. If I would have gone for a cheaper computer, it may have lasted maybe 3-4 years, but this MacBook is going on for 7 years, and I got a discount on it. See, that is the difference between going for a frugal purchase versus a cheap purchase. Cheap is for the short term, frugal is for the long term, but you can get it at a better price, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And okay, you mentioned MacBook. I mean, we're not sponsored by Apple or anything, but my previous computer was a Mac as well. And I kept it for 6 years, but then I just changed because I wanted a desktop computer then. But it was still working, and I even managed to sell it after 6 years. Okay, it was not a lot of money, but still, I managed to sell it for I think 300 euros. So it's still I still got a lot of mileage out of it.
Yeah, exactly right, and that's how you think when you're thinking about being frugal versus cheap. You think about what brings value to your life instead of let's just buy this; it'll last so long, and then we can go throw it out and buy something else. When you're thinking about being frugal, you're thinking about how can this last me long? How can this bring value to my life? You don't just buy a bunch of things and let it clutter up your house because it's cheap. You buy things that brings value to yourself and to your life.
And Steve, to go back a bit to the Mac Apple example, I think that's a good one because Mac or Apple products, usually they are considered expensive. I mean, they're not cheap, huh? But even if you keep them a long time, I mean, when you buy them, okay, it might be a big chunk of your budget or your wallet. So people can say, oh, yes, you're right. I see the point in buying things for the long term, but sometimes that initial purchase is expensive. So I'd rather go for a PC because I need it now, or maybe it's with clothes, it's the same. So how can people go over that, or is there a solution? Because maybe you have a limited budget for whatever you want to purchase.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned before you had a MacBook for like 6 or 7 years, and then you sold it.
Yeah.
So an option for buying some of these expensive items is looking for maybe a used or second party or third party, second hand or even third hand product. Like you can see this with used cars. I see it with cell phones. You talk about Apple cell phones. Apple cell phones are so expensive. They're some of them are about $1,000, and if you go to a site like Facebook Marketplace or any other type of marketplace, you can find a secondhand one much cheaper than the first one, and it gives you the same amount of value, but just at a more discount price.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Yeah, you can buy quality at a cheap price by buying them secondhand. No, really good. And does that only apply to physical purchases, or can you also apply that to food? And because this is what we buy every day. I mean, not every day, but this is what we buy on the regular, I would say.
Yeah, with food, that's a great question as well. You can always buy name brand food, like when you think about potato chips, you got like Lay's, you've
Mm-hmm.
got all these other types of name brand foods. But you can also, and I know in the US, you have plenty of different grocery stores like Aldi's, and then there's Lindel, which is a German chain also in the US.
Mm-hmm.
These stores give you like off brand food. It's cheaper, it's the same food, it's just different packaging. And that is another way you can save on food as well. Plus, if you want, I know there's also farmers markets where you can buy fresh produce, and you can possibly bargain a deal to get better prices on produce.
No, that's a good one. And then, okay, here we have Aldi as well because it's German actually. And then we have, of course, all the major supermarkets. They have their own products. I think that's a good one, and it's not necessarily bad because usually the white product, usually it's good. It's good enough in general. And maybe one tip I have, we already talked about it in a previous episode, but it's if you need ingredients to cook, maybe you do not need to have the most premium ingredients for every recipe because sometimes depending on what you buy, the ingredient adds a flavor or a texture, but it's not the main ingredient. So it does not need to be the premium ingredient. For example, tomatoes in a tomato sauce. Okay, maybe it's good to have good quality tomatoes, but if you use Parmesan in your cheese, in your lasagna recipe or whatever, maybe you don't need to have the premium Parmesan, for example.
Oh yeah, that's a great example. And just thinking of a lasagna as well, even the pasta, you don't have to have the most expensive pasta. You can get cheap pasta because it's going to taste similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have the same flavor, and it's not going to really make a big difference in the way you eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed, and that's why what I thought because it happened to me that I was buying premium ingredients myself for recipes at home, and then I was like, yeah, but in the end, if I use a bit cheaper brand, maybe it will not change too much on the taste. And for some things, then sometimes I buy them premium, sometimes I buy them, yeah, relatively cheap, I would say. So yeah, indeed. And Steve, were you always that? Where does that frugality from you come from? Because were you always like this money savvy and looking for deals or looking for value in all you purchase?
I think I grew up in a home where my father was both cheap and frugal at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
He would cheap out on things just because the money wasn't there,
Yeah.
or he would be frugal on the other hand when he knew that okay, this item can last a long time. Let's try to make it last and have value. And so then those two ideals were kind of put into my head. And as I grew older, I mean, not having as much money, I also tried to make sure, okay, how can I make money last longer? How can I make things last longer?
Mm-hmm.
I've had cheap things. I've had cheap cars that don't last long. And then I had like a good used car that will last a long time, like a Toyota or a Honda, and it just keeps going and going. And that kind of helped me learn, okay, maybe having the best value is more important than the price.
Yeah. Any horror stories, Steve?
Well, probably not me personally. My father, he once bought a Jeep. He was looking for a new vehicle, and I was working at a Toyota dealership at the time, and I said, "Hey, you should look at buying either a Toyota or even a Honda. These will last you a long time." Now, he wasn't looking at something last long. Well, he wanted a vehicle. He just didn't have the money.
Mhm.
So he
Yeah.
cheapened out and bought like a Jeep. I'm not sure. It's just one of those Jeep SUVs that was about 15,000 US, brand new, and it seemed like every time I would talk to him on the phone, there was just something new happening to the
Oh,
Jeep that he had to
okay.
fix.
Hmm.
So he kept putting more and more and more money into it, and about maybe 3 to 5 years later, he was just done with it. He was like, "This is costing me more money than I had bought it." So he decided to sell it,
Yeah.
and then he bought a Honda, which is now he's at like maybe between 7 and 10 years on the same Honda. Which I was like, yes, this is what I was talking about.
Yes, indeed. It's 17 years. Wow. And it's still running, driving well and stuff. No issues or no major issues.
No major issues. He just he goes in, he takes it in for regular maintenance, and it just works. And he's quite happy with it. He's not complaining about it. He likes how it feels, and it just lasts long.
Okay. And Steve, in your entourage, I know now you live in Taiwan. We'll talk about it later, but how is that perceived? This frugality? I mean, is oh yeah, Steve is cheap, or I mean, do your friends say, oh, Steve the cheap, or Steve the frugal? I mean, how do you adjust with your circle of friends, or are they all frugal themselves?
I wouldn't say they're all frugal. I think a lot of them, they may think, I don't know if they think that we're cheap, but they look at it. They're like, oh, Steve and Sarah. Sarah's my wife. They're like, Steve and Sarah. They live so cheaply. We can do this as well.
Ah, okay,
And
that's
it's
cool.
it's
Yeah.
uh it's the thought that oh, if you guys can do it, we can do it too.
Okay. And do you think it's hard for, I mean, for me, when I was a student, I was rather cheap. I was trying to find the cheapest stuff because I didn't have a lot of student budget, let's say. And then, okay, as more money I had, I was looking for more frugal choices. But do you think it's hard to move from this, let's say, mainstream or not being necessarily frugal to this frugality stage where you're at? Is it difficult for your friends, for example, or for people that you talk with?
I think it's a lot tougher than if you started off cheap going to frugal. I think if you got a higher lifestyle and you spend more money on a lot of different things, I
Hmm.
think it takes a mindset change. I've got some friends. I came home from Taiwan once, and they said, "Oh, how much do you save?" And I told them like, "What? How do you save so much?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I just kind of live like a frugal life. I don't try to go out to eat as much. I don't do this. We try to eat a lot of food at home, and we take public transportation. We use our bikes more often." And I mean, they just wondered how I did it, but it's the mindset change. You have to think, how how can I go from spending all this money and changing my lifestyle? I need to be able to cut costs. I need to be kind of living below my means and
Hmm.
kind of cut some of the things that you have been used to for so long.
Yeah. I mean, and that may be the hard part actually, cutting on expenses. I mean, cutting your habits actually.
Yeah, exactly. Oftentimes, I think right after I left college where I was cheap, all of a sudden I was kind of flushed with money because I was working a job and had more money. And the thing I would do is like, oh, I could go out to bars, I could
Yeah.
eat out. And then I realized like, whoa, at the end of the month, I was like, oh, my paycheck, I don't have much money in my bank accounts. And every month kind of was the same, And then I was realizing, if I stopped eating out or even stopped going to a bar, I could all of a sudden save some more money. And so I cut it down maybe to like once a week. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden my bank account looked fuller. I was like, whoa. And then I remember my days of in college and with my father and my family. I was like, I could just go back to kind of being frugal, looking at different generic items in the grocery store, looking at ways I can save on electricity or water or even rent.
hmm And one of my favorite personal finance authors is Ramit Sethi, and he always says, "Yeah, you should not cut back on small things, but focus on the big wins." What do you think about his approach?
Yeah, I agree. So he talks about like, okay, if you like coffee and you want to spend money on coffee, you can spend money on coffee.
Yeah.
But cut on things that you don't find value in your life. Like I don't really find value in going out to eat. I
Okay.
find value more of cooking at home because
hmm
I can cook it, I can make delicious meals, and I can save some for later for like the next meal, and I enjoy doing that, and I get to do it with my wife. That is something I enjoy. Now, one thing I also enjoy, but costs some money, is traveling. And so I put more of my money into traveling instead of putting all my money into kind of living regular life. And I think Ramit Sethi talks about certain things like that as well. He would rather put money into traveling as well,
Yeah.
but other things you can cut costs on in order to enjoy the certain things you like to enjoy.
Yeah. So it's about a bit redirecting your money instead of giving out as for every type of purchase, food, transport, travel, your hobbies, is to say, hey, maybe I can reduce in the parts that are less important to me, and then I can put a bit more of that money to the things I enjoy and that I really value in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Like I said, my wife and I enjoy travel. We can travel on budget airlines if we wanted to. I don't like them.
Yeah,
So I prefer to have I guess a better airline
yeah,
in order to have like when I arrive to a place, I want to be well rested. I want to feel good when I get off the plane. And on a budget airline, I just don't feel good.
yeah.
And so putting money into places of value is much more important to me.
hmm And what about accommodation? Do you go to a hostel? Do you go to a like a normal hotel or even maybe a bit fancy?
Actually, when I travel for accommodation, my wife and I, we will look at hostels. We will look at places on like Booking.com or Agoda to find like maybe a good deal on a accommodation, like a hotel or something. It's not the fanciest, but if the pictures, the reviews, and everything looks like it matches like our budget, and it looks like it's going to be comfortable, we'll choose it. If the best option is a hostel, we'll look and see what is got the best value for our money. We don't look at the cheapest. We don't look at the most expensive. We
hmm
want to see what's got the best kind of bang for your buck.
Yeah. And then, Steve, okay, we talk about traveling, the food, and then the car of your father. But one question I have is I think it's important, and I'm kind of doing these things as well, but doesn't it take too much of your time, Steve? Looking for the best deals, looking for the good value, etc.
Well, yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. As I look for being frugal, it's always a matter of am I saving time or am I saving money?
Yeah.
And oftentimes I try to get my wife on the same page as I am, and sometimes she is rather insistent on saving on money, and sometimes I'm rather insistent on saving on time. But so we have to kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say when looking for flights to travel, I would spend the time to find the best deal.
hmm
And the same thing for accommodation. But with other things, I guess sometimes we'll rather find. I think it would be finding better price. Like if we're out and about, we kind of look. All right, this is a good price. But I mean, we could spend maybe an hour or more looking for a better price, but the difference really doesn't matter. It may be a difference of a dollar or two.
Yeah.
So there's no point in that. It's better to make a decision now than rather wait like a couple of hours, just kind of wandering, trying to find that best price.
Yeah, and I can share something about myself is that when it comes to travel, I mean, I used to travel a bit more before, but it was I was looking for deals on the planes, on the hotels, etc. And then sometimes I would get in a conundrum, in a dilemma with the hotels, like should I pick this one? It's closer to the center of the city or something, or the attractions, or that one. It's a bit further, but it's a bit nicer. It's a bit cheaper. Then I can get stuck. I could get stuck for I don't know, not for hours, but I could get stuck for a long time, and then the difference in price might have been 50 euros, which is not worth my time to think about. And then now I'm really getting pissed off when sometimes it happens to me too. And then, okay, I'm getting pissed off. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm taking a decision in the next 5 minutes. Both options or the three options are right. I'll take this one, because I'm tired of wasting my money there. And then I pick it. And what I used to do before is to check again, for example, a flight. Oh, has the price changed? Did I make a good deal? This is something I did. And okay, now I don't do it anymore. But it took some effort to not going back and look at if the price has changed on my flights,
Yeah, I understand. This happens to me all the time. Like I'm like, oh, this one's good, this one's better, maybe this one.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I just got to make a decision.
Yes.
And because if you just keep thinking and thinking and thinking, yes, you'll get pissed off, you'll get frustrated, and it's just And if you could you're like, this one's gonna do it. We'll do it and make it happen.
Yes, and sometimes, I mean, here I take the example of traveling, but for other things, I mean, maybe picking, I don't know, what a plumber for who's gonna come and repair your sink or whatever it is, or the two dishes at the restaurant. Sometimes you pick a decision, and I know that usually when I pick the decision, I feel much better, and then I move on to other stuff. Then it takes all the space in your brain. Okay, holidays, it's a fun thing, but sometimes it's personal things in your life that you need to choose. Should I go there? Should I not go there? Should I go this place, that place? Should I buy this microphone for my podcast or the other one? Pick one, move on, see where it takes you. And then, as you say, Steve, and then you'll figure it out. And then, Steve, of course, living a frugal life is a good way to be financially responsible with one's money. But of course, at some point, you need as well to invest. I mean, you cannot only save money, because with that saved money, what do you do, Steve?
Yeah, you're right. You must invest. I mean, if you're just saving money in a bank, the bank doesn't give much interest. Your money is actually losing value due to the fact that inflation is happening. And that's why what I do is I'll take that money that I've saved and I'll invest it into low cost index funds. Usually, my index funds are with Vanguard, and I usually choose the total stock market index fund with Vanguard for the U.S. stock market. That's what I like to do with my frugal money, because honestly, if I can grow that money, then that means I don't have to worry about my money issues further down the line in the next 10, 15, 20 years. I've already saved and it's already growing for me. I think that is a great thing you can do with your money when you're being frugal, because you can't just be saving in a bank. It just sits there and does nothing. I would rather it working for me and bringing value to my life.
Yeah, indeed. And just imagine, I'm just thinking out loud, but for example, let's say you need to travel, or you want to travel, and you found flights that are 200 euros or $200 cheaper. You put that money into your Vanguard account, into your stock exchange, your broker portfolio, and that money grows in the background. So actually, you save more than 200 euros because you save something that might multiply a certain number of times during your life without you doing any much effort. So you do one effort to find a good flight or better hotel or maybe a better car, and and all these savings you will grow for you, and they can even do 2x, 3x during the course of your life without you doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of one of the best things about being frugal is you got this frugal lifestyle, and at the end of the day, you're saving more money than you would expect to save on that flight. Like you said, 200 euros, and with compounding interest, the next 10, 20, 30, even 40 years from now, that $200 has grown to a massive amount.
Yes, indeed, indeed. And added it with your regular savings. And then, Steve, yeah, so you mentioned you're in Taiwan right now with your wife. So yeah, somehow I have a few guests from Taiwan here. I had Noman numbers as well. So I don't know why Taiwan is so attractive. So yeah, what brought you to Taiwan actually, Steve?
That's a great question. About 4 years ago, I was looking for a change in my life,
Hmm.
and I wanted to do some traveling. And one of the great things about Taiwan is I can work here as an English teacher. I can save maybe 10 to 15,000 USD a year,
Hmm.
with a pretty good job and just living frugally, and then I can go and travel. And so that was one of the reasons I decided to move to Taiwan. Was it was a great place, great weather, people were incredibly nice, and good food as well. So then I was like, okay, I'll move here, I'll save money, I'll travel, and see where life takes me.
Okay, that's great. And can you then you mentioned the Vanguard account, so the yeah your portfolio, your investment portfolio. So can you still manage that from the US? I mean, is that okay, or how does that work? Because you know when sometimes you move abroad, it can be difficult with those financial institutions.
Yes, that's a great question. Technically, Vanguard's not supposed to be selling me any mutual funds. So what I do is, I mean, it's not legal, but I use a VPN to
Oh, okay.
kind of
Mhm.
mask my location, so then I can invest money.
Okay, okay. Because depending on the type of account, yeah, sometimes it's if it's retirement, then it's difficult if you live abroad. But if you are in the country, then okay. I see. Okay, well, Steve, would you have any for the listeners? Do you have any 2 or 3 tips to get on to start with? Yeah, being more frugal or yeah in their life.
Yeah, I do actually. One of my tips is to live a life of value. Basically, what I'm trying to say is when you buy things and when you spend money, try to see if this is bringing you value into your life. That is, I would say, tip one number one. Because if it's not bringing value, then you should cut it out and put that money towards something that will bring value into your life. Number two, I would think is don't just go and buy anything. Actually, think about what you're buying. Think about why you're buying it and what's the purpose of it. If we were just out there just buying clothes just because they look good, and then that's just kind of wasting your money. If you're buying a suit because it's going to enhance your job performance, it's going to help provide for your job, then that sounds like a good purchase. But if you're just got a closet full of suits you never wear, well,
Mhm.
what's the point?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Do you have anything on minimalism? Because you talk a lot about being in kind of intentional, making the right choice. Don't buy everything. Are you a bit of a minimalist yourself?
Yes, I would say I'm a bit of a minimalist myself. I think I've got two suits. I have maybe five or six different t-shirts, maybe two or three pairs of pants, maybe two or three different ties, and a bunch of socks, and that's about it of my closet. I wear the same thing over and over
Yeah.
because I don't need anything else. And my wife always says, Steve, why do you have so many clothes? It's like, I don't have that many clothes.
Yeah.
You should have saw it before I moved to Taiwan. I think my house is all about trying to have less clutter and less things. Being someone that lives abroad, it is best kind of keeping my suitcase lighter.
Yeah.
And when I travel, I try to keep everything lighter and more condensed. And I think minimalism goes along with that, having value for each item that you own.
Okay. Very good. And then, Steve, I think we came at the end of the show. And so, yeah, I really want to thank you for this, yeah, very good conversation, very interesting. And I hope we can bring some more frugality into the world. But mostly, I mean, it's not about having people do the same things as we do, but more about having people enjoy their money more, actually.
Yes, I totally agree. I believe that if they can enjoy their money plus live a life where it's got value, then that is the most important thing.
Yeah, because sometimes, and it happened to me, it's you spend money for things or whatever experiences, and then it's you do because everybody else does, or you do it, because you should do it, or it's everybody. I don't know. You're 30 years old. You should buy a big TV. You should, I don't know, have what? A lawnmower. I don't know what. You should have these things, but you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you want one, yeah, sure, buy one. But yeah. So yeah, that's a bit message I also like to pass on is, be intentional with your purchases. Yeah. So Steve, thank you. And as you know, before I let you go, we always have our 3 quick fire questions. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So question number 1 is, what is the best investment you made?
I think it would be my relationship with my wife. I think just being able to put money, time, and effort into it has really helped grow it strong. And I believe as a team, we can do so many great things. And so every day I try to put, once again, time, money, and effort into that relationship.
Yes, very good. And I saw that pizza the other day on Twitter. It looked very good.
Oh, yes. We made that last night. And at the end, like my wife was a little hesitant and she's like, "This is good." And I was like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah. No, very good. And question number 2, what is a book you can recommend to anyone? And it does not need to be necessarily a financial book.
I would say Never Split the Difference.
Oh, yeah.
And this book is about, is from Chris Voss. He is an ex-FBI negotiator. And the book is about negotiation. And I think it brings a lot of value into people's lives because you're negotiating everything in your life. And so it's a great way to know how to think, a great way to interact with other people as well.
No, I read it as well. It's one of my favorite books of last year, actually. So no, really excellent recommendation. And then last question is, what is the best purchase? I know you're frugal, but still, what is the best purchase you've made for under $100, Steve?
I would say it's my wife's cell phone. She has an iPhone 7 and she had lost, well, technically she didn't lose, but she misplaced her iPhone 5 while we were traveling in Indonesia. And she was without a phone, and a friend of ours decided to sell us his iPhone 7 for $25.
Oh, perfect.
So we're like, yes, let's do it. And we've had it for 2 years, still going strong. And it's one of the best values I think I've made for under $100.
Okay, very good. Secondhand, as we said in the beginning of the episode, and great value, still going strong. Perfect. Okay, Steve. So, the people can find you at thefrugalexpat.com to find more about you, to find out, I think you have some calculators as well and some very good articles on various topics. Where else can they find you, Steve?
They can find me on Twitter at thefrugalexpat1. That's the number 1. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Okay, website and Twitter. Okay, very good. I'll link it all in the show notes so the listeners can find you. And Steve, thank you again very much. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it. And if you find it useful, please make sure you share it with a friend, or you can also rate the show in your favorite podcast app. This will help the show to grow, so if you do so, thank you very much. And now let's go through the key takeaways for today. Number 1, a definition of frugality. Frugality is good value at a below market purchase price. It means getting value and getting a deal out of it. Frugality is all about bringing value to yourself and to your life, and with a long-term perspective. Number 2, frugality versus being cheap. If you're cheap, you live fast and quick. You focus only on a low price. Frugality focuses on value. If you're cheap, you look at short-term gains. Frugality, you look at the long term. Products that last for a longer time, and if possible, bought at a discount or secondhand. A link to our previous article with more differences between being cheap or frugal. So if you want to know more, head to the show notes. Number 3, a few frugality tips. So you can look for secondhand products on the marketplace, eBay, your local secondhand website. Regarding food, look at white label products. They're often as good as normal ones. Bargain deals at farmers markets. Buy premium or cheaper products depending on the final use of that product. In general, you should cut on things that do not bring value to your life. And as well, when you're comparing products or services, we took the airlines and the hotels online. Consider the following. Am I saving time or money? Make your decision, make it happen, and don't look back. Number 4. What should you do with all the saved up money? Well, you should invest it. Do not save it in the bank unless you do not have an emergency fund in place yet. And think about it. The 200 euros of dollars you saved up will multiply over the long term and bring even more value to your life. So it's one small effort, but it can have a big impact on your money. And last but not least, a few tips to live a life of value. Think about, is this purchase bringing value to your life? Yes, good. No, cut it out. Think about what and why you are buying an item. Have a value for each item you own. And in the end, all these tips and the frugal lifestyle is not about living a life of deprivation. It's about enjoying your money more and bringing more value to your life as well. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@johnnytalks.com, or connect through social media at Johnny Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.